Hey everybody, welcome back to the Crave Show with Chris and JRuss, and we're stoked to be back after a short break due to my lack of internet.
It is so, it's like so, like low energy. Hey everybody,
Oh yeah,
welcome back.
well
How's it going?
I'll spice it up. We want to back up.
All right,
Hey
here we go.
everybody.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give us the spicy intro. Go.
Hey everybody, we're back in the saddle. Well, I had a phone when I came up here, and I'm
That's
concerned
funny.
it's not on silent, so I don't know. Somewhere in the middle of this cast, maybe I don't get a lot of
Okay,
messages.
hold
So.
on, because like we've gotten quite a few really positive comments about Chicken Hawk, about the bird,
Oh yeah,
and we were just talking about Chicken
yeah,
Hawk. Do you know if it's a girl or a boy yet? Do we know?
I do. It's a female.
It is a girl. Okay.
Yeah, we. I mean, the
So
internet is just replete with information, and all we had to do was look at what sex is our sparrow, and it was very easy to tell. The males are just more distinctly colored, and the females are a little
okay.
more dull.
Okay. So please tell people what you were just telling me a second ago about like in the mornings and stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because I think I know there's at least a group of our listeners that really like Chicken Hawk. So
Okay.
they would be interested to know why do we not have Chicken Hawk this week, and
Okay.
tell us what you told me a second ago.
So we don't have Chicken Hawk this week because Steph and I have basically relocated to Arizona for most of the winter. This is the time that we do a lot of our work, which is with military groups. It's predominantly in Arizona, and we renovated that bus. It's livable. Man, I'm going through some electrical issues, but it is livable. And so we pulled it down. We drove it down to Arizona and parked it on our teammate Andy's property. He's got a multi-level property with a lot big enough for the bus on the bottom. So we've got a water hookup. We got the solar, and so we're living in the bus, which is great. It's an experiment in learning for me because the solar system is giving me fits, but I'm eventually going to get it right. But we ordered Starlink has a program where if you already have Starlink, you can order like the mobile mini or it's something like that, and it basically like tacks onto your home account, and you pay the same for the satellite, but then your service is only like $30 more a month or something for Starlink.
Basically roaming, right?
Yeah, which is great. Our Starlink at home has to be associated with an address, and this one does not. It's just wherever we go, we can have great internet. But it's
That's
not
cool.
here yet. The shipping got delayed, so I'm up at my teammate Andy's house that kind of sits up above where we're staying, and because he has internet because it's his house, and using that. So I didn't want to bring the bird up for the cast because as much as I really like being around the bird, she poops a lot, and so this is like his workout room, and I didn't want to have bird poop everywhere that I gotta like walk around and clean up after we're done.
So Chicken Hawk's in the bus with Steph.
Yep, Steph and Mia, the three girls are down in the bus and probably relaxing, and she's great. I mean, I, it's hilarious to me that this is a wild animal that has imprinted on me or gotten attached to us. She does also like Steph, but pretty clearly prefers me. And and the thing that we were talking about is that what did you ask? Oh, do we have a bird cage? And we do. And then you said, do you put her in there at night? And I said, yeah, because she likes to snuggle. And if I'm asleep and she comes and snuggles on me and I roll over, I might not have a bird anymore because she's really small. But what she really likes to do is in the evening she clearly has a circadian rhythm of her own. In the evening, she'll have been flying and eating and kind of exercising. And then at some point after the sun goes down, she'll just find like the bend in my elbow and kind of tuck herself in there and just go to sleep. And so I got to gently put her in the bird cage, close the door. And then when we get up in the morning for coffee, the sun hasn't come up yet because we're, military guys like to start early. And we take her out for a few minutes before we go to work, 20 minutes or something. And she's not a morning person. She wants to just sit in my hand and poke her little head out and chirp at me real quietly, and then just sit there and no flying, no noise, no pecking at me, none of the normal stuff. She just wants to get some cuddles in the morning before we go to work. It's super super cute.
That's so, it's so interesting. It's so
Yeah,
interesting.
I
Like she's
mean,
just, would you say you like she's almost like she's warming herself up in your hands or something, just like hanging
yeah.
out, just
Well, her baseline body temperature is warmer than mine. Like if she settles down on my arm and like spreads a little feathers out, which she does when she's comfortable, her skin actually hits mine, and she's, I would say, 3-4 degrees warmer than I am, like noticeably warmer. And so the bus, we don't have a heat system at the moment because we're in Arizona and we don't really need a heating system yet. We just have cooling, and then at night it's wintertime here, and we just open the windows and it's very very nice and comfortable. But we were concerned that she might get cold, so we got from the pet store, we got one of those little like reptile rocks that you plug in and it creates heat. And then we thought when we cover her little bird cage with like a blanket, and the rock will hopefully keep it at a temperature that's comfortable for her. But yeah, it seems like she wants to just warm up in my hand and slowly wake up. Super cute.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah, she's great.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, you want to get into it?
Yeah. So you had I don't, was it from a guest or just something that you came up with?
A little bit of both. A couple people had
Okay,
mentioned this question in different ways, but I thought it was an interesting topic and something we could discuss. Yeah.
cool.
So basically, just kind of, what would you say if we had someone in front of us that was sitting down with us that was, um, let's just say they're about to start AFF, or maybe they're about to get their A license, maybe brand new skydiver. What would we say if we tried to figure out what are the things that are most important for them to learn in their skydiving progression? And then what are those stages of progression? Like if you were going to kind of break down the different stages for a skydiver, how would you differentiate? What are those markers that kind of mark those different stages? And what do you think people should be learning in those stages? Yeah. So kind of
Yeah,
order of progression. And of course, this is our opinion. We're just sharing what we
sure.
think is important, and somebody else can say something else, and that's totally fine. But we're the ones talking on camera, so we can say what we think.
Yeah. I guess like being at Skydive Chicago for so long now, I get a little bit caught up in their system, and I got to remember that that's not the system everywhere. So basically, what they do is a little more involved for their AFF program. That it's almost your A license when you get out of the program. It's like 23 jumps or 22 jumps or something like that, or maybe it goes all the way to your A. But when I did AFF, it was 7 jumps to get through the program, and um, I skipped a level. My instructor combined 2 levels because I was doing well, and so I was basically on my own at jump number 7, and that was it. Good luck. Don't try not to kill yourself.
Well, wait, you were done with an instructor after jump 7?
After jump 6,
Really?
yeah, I mean, I was riding up in the plane with my buddy Graham that we started the course together on our 7th jump, and I mean, he had 7. He didn't skip a level, just me. But
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, you can't jump together. You don't have any license." And we're like, "Yeah, okay." And we went and jumped together, which I don't recommend for
Yeah.
anyone. I'm
Don't
not
do
saying that
that.
was a good
Don't do that.
plan. That's actually like we almost killed each other a couple times, so don't do that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, on my 7th jump, it was a solo from full altitude, or not a solo, but we combined. But we went to full altitude. We didn't know how to track. We didn't know about separation. We didn't know anything. And
What?
yeah,
So you were supposed to be by yourself, but even by yourself, to me, seemed like when I got
7
my,
jumps.
I did a license in a week at Spaceland. It was in
Yeah,
Houston, and I mean, I'm pretty sure I remember this correctly. Like, it was all the way to jump 20, I think,
mm,
that I had an instructor with me. I can't, I mean, there were, I think probably, no, I think that's not right. I think 19 and 20, I didn't have an instructor. My instructor watched me exit by myself, and I
Mm.
had to go by myself on 19 and 20.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in there, I had to do a hop and pop, or a couple of them or something like that.
Yep.
But then from 21 to 25, I had to do completely by myself. And they had someone watching me exit.
Yeah.
But
And
it
doesn't
was,
that sound like a better deal?
oh, I mean, I felt like I was a part of the program all the way up to jump 25. I felt like somebody was watching after me.
Yeah. So the downside, or if there's a negative aspect of that, it would be the price, right? Like I only paid for 6 jumps with an instructor. If you go through AFP at Skydive Chicago, I think it's very similar to what you did. I don't think it gets you quite to an A license, but somebody is looking out for you for 20 or 22 jumps.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple hop and pops in there. And that just sounds like a way better approach to
Yeah.
getting people to their A license than just saying, okay, you did 6 jumps, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that was the program they had, and it's what I signed up for. And I'm certainly not a victim. I'm just saying that in retrospect, I feel like a little bit more supervision probably would have been okay.
Yeah.
Um, so having said that, I guess the first part of my answer to the question depends on what program did you do.
Mm-hmm.
But most of them don't have the capacity to do a canopy course. They're gonna, especially the ones that last longer. Like hopefully in yours, they talk to you about some canopy skills and some how to set up your bases or your legs. And I mean, they did talk to me about that, of course, but it really wasn't until my first canopy course, which was honestly a couple of years later, that I really had a good idea about what just a basic canopy pattern was. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't believe I made it that long without having that idea in my mind. Um, and so that, to be honest, is one of the first things that I think to answer that question, that you get done with your student program, and you get enough jumps to be in an A license or have an A license, and then you sign up for a canopy course. And I would hope that it would come, 30 jumps, 40 jumps, whenever you can afford it, but as soon as you possibly can do it. And then you texted me this question a couple days ago, so I was thinking about it a couple times while we were driving, and like some of the dangerous spots uh, that seem to be dangerous, especially for guys. I think that there's a danger point around 250 jumps,
Mm-hmm.
um, where you've got a little bit of experience. You probably haven't changed canopies yet, or maybe you changed once, but you're just kind of, I don't know, feeling like I got this. Like I've got a couple hundred jumps now, and that seems like a good number. The guy that I started skydiving with got hurt right around 250 jumps doing something kind of silly under canopy, which paused his career for I think about a year because he broke his back. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and and then I think there's another danger point. And to be honest, I'm kind of talking about guys. I feel like a lot of the women are more circumspect under canopy. They're a little more conservative, cautious, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
But and I don't mean to stereotype, but just by and large, most women don't go as aggressively after the canopy stuff as men do. Um, and somewhere around 800 to 1,000 jumps, I think there's another big danger point, where you've seen people swooping on the drop zone and looks cool and it's fun and it's fast and all those things, but the margin for error is really small. And I think that there's 800, 1,000, 1,200 jumps somewhere in there. Um, that I don't know the right way to approach that, though. I don't know if it's another canopy course or getting coaching before you start actually swooping, or what the right approach is. If it's enough just to say, hey, you're in that danger point right now, like take it easy a little bit. I think that might not be enough. But that's another place where I feel like people get hurt under canopy. And I remember right after my buddy got hurt, I had about the same jump numbers, 250 or 300 jumps, and I was sitting in the back of the plane with a couple of the camera flyers, and there was a camera flyer in Colorado, Eric Gibson, who said, "Man, I just hit 1,000 jumps." And to me, 1,000 jumps sounded like the whole world at that point, oh my God, who could ever have more than 1,000? Uh, and he said, "Yeah, I just hit 1,000 jumps," and I realized like I know enough about this sport to know that I don't know anything. And at 200 or whatever, and this guy's a swooper and he's filming tandems, and I think he might have been an AFF instructor. And I was just like, you don't know anything about the sport? Uh, well, I know way less than nothing. And like, it was just a really good thing to
But
overhear. The conversation wasn't with me, but I overheard it, and it was a very eye opening thing to hear.
but before he said that, how much did you think you knew?
I mean,
Did you feel
I
like
went,
you knew a lot?
well, I wouldn't say a lot, but at like 28 or 30 jumps, my buddy said, "Hey, let's go down to the wind tunnel." And I didn't know what it was, but I went down and met him in Florida, and we flew a lot. And and I came back from that weekend a, a better flyer than my jump numbers would indicate. Uh, and so, by comparison to other people, like the people that were in my AFF course, like we had accelerated past a lot of those people and like caught up to other people who had never been to the wind tunnel, because at that time there was only Orlando and it just hadn't caught on the way that it has now. Um, so I feel like normally I'm a reasonably circumspect guy. Like I don't carry around a lot of bravado, but maybe a little bit more than was appropriate for 20, 200 jumps or whatever it was that I had. Um, so, I mean, canopy courses I would love to have people take once a year, but for some people that might be overkill. Um, and then I think that whatever discipline that you would like to fly in, getting some sort of structured coaching, uh, whether it's belly or free fly or crew or whatever it is you want to do, especially crew. If you like crew, if that appeals to you, for God's sake, somebody coach you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
It seems so scary, so dangerous.
yeah, yeah. I went to organize in Iowa one weekend a couple of years ago and did a bunch of jumps with a lot of people. And then the next weekend, some guys thought that they wanted to do crew and they didn't have the right canopies and they didn't have any coaching and they freaking hit the ground. And they're both still
Huh.
alive, but it was a really bad accident. And they they didn't even ask anybody. They just said, "Hey, we're like," I don't even know if they told the drop zone. They just go fly these wrong canopies close together and get tangled up and don't know how to deal with it. And
Man.
yeah, so some kind of structured coaching for
Yeah.
whatever it is you want to get into.
Yeah.
And that would uh, the trouble is, I think that those things obviously cost money. A good coach is going to be $200, $300, $400 for a day. And that sounds like a lot of money until you compare it to the value of your life. And then it's not much money at all, especially the
Mm.
canopy coach. And then after that, different stages, I think, get a little bit more difficult to talk about, just because people are so different. And you know, between me and you, what did you need at 1,000 jumps is probably very different from what I needed at 1,000 jumps. I think ongoing canopy coaching is awesome. Um, I don't know. In my opinion, I don't think people spend enough time developing that skill that flies in a safe pattern and gets you safely back to the ground. People take it for granted that, oh, I'm under canopy, I'm going to be able to fly safely, and that's not always the case. Um, the in-air skills, even though that's what people focus on, and I coach people on in-air skills, so I want people to keep focusing on that. But I think that should be secondary to getting to the ground safely after your canopy opens up and understanding uh, efficient and safe ways to fly your canopy.
Yeah.
So not a super long answer to that question, I guess, but I think it gets really tough because people are so individualistic. Yeah,
Yeah.
the dudes need to take it easy around 200 jumps and around 1,000.
Yeah. Some of the things that kind of came to my mind as I was thinking about it is, and I don't know where the stages are. Like, what are those markers that kind of indicate you're going from beginner to novice to intermediate to advanced to, you know, ninja or whatever word we want to use. But um, for some reason, it's a little bit easier. It seems like it's easier for me to think about like the beginner and intermediate, like those lower levels, because there's so much to learn.
Yeah,
Um, and so that's kind of where my mind was going. Like, okay, when you have this huge, vast array of skills that you want to learn and need to learn, how should you order those? Like, what's a good way to order those? What should
Um,
you focus on, in those different stages? So I'm going to give you some of my thoughts, and then you argue with me, or whatever,
True.
or you give your thoughts. But like at the beginning, when you're in that beginner stage, whatever it is, let's just say it's that beginner stage. I don't know, up to 50 jumps. Who knows? I don't know. Because like you said, 50 jumps for you could be very different than 50 jumps for me. You
Yep.
might already be advanced, and I might, it might take me 100 jumps to get to advanced or whatever. So not really the number, but it seems to me that at the beginning, people should really be focusing on good, safe, proficient exits. Like,
Mm,
learn how to really exit the plane under control, like control yourself on the hill. Can
mm,
you fly on the hill on your belly? Can you do turns on the hill? Can you sink on the hill if you need to? Can you track up the hill? Like just that basic exit skills, good, solid exits. Um, that seems to me like one of the most basic fundamental skills that you really need to learn. And at that skill, even though you're focusing on belly, I think that will serve you in everything that you do. And then as you move to other types of disciplines or whatever, another skill I think that people should focus on at the beginning is really, really getting proficient at flat tracking, like really learning what that means. Not just the tracking that we do in AFF, because I realize and I completely understand that in AFF, an AFF instructor, there's only so much they can teach you, and even if they follow you up to 25 jumps, they're limited in what they can do. They're trying to keep you
yeah.
safe. They're trying to keep you alive. They're trying to teach you the basics so that you can move on. So I don't expect that an AFF instructor can teach you how to be a really good, strong flat tracker. That's not their job, I don't think. But you should take what they've taught you and improve on it and make it better and get other coaching from other people to learn, like, okay, this is what I've been doing. How do I really improve my body position or whatever? So exits, flat tracking, and then I was going to say, canopy, and not anything major, but like how just the different kind of begin to understand what is the flight cycle of a canopy. What do those terms mean, like glide ratio? Because you hear about that stuff at the beginning, but I th- I mean, I'm using myself as a template. I don't know if that's good or not, but I don't think a lot of people really understand all those different things and how a canopy really works and flies and what's going on. And like you said, the pattern, like really understanding all that stuff and accuracy, beginning to really focus on those things. Um, and then there was one other thing. What was it? I don't know. You can respond to that as I think, and the other thing will come back to me in a minute.
Well, I definitely agree with you about exits. I think that's great. And understanding the relative wind on your belly will definitely give you a very good theoretical basis for just understanding the relative wind and whatever you present to the wind. So I absolutely agree with that. Um, Tracking is for sure something that gets neglected in the very beginning, and I think people's perception is like, oh, I have to get more experience before I can go to a tracking camp, or um, so I totally agree with that one as well. If people could sign up for that kind of a camp early, again, it's a life saving thing, right? That we probably as experienced jumpers we take for granted a little bit, that we know how to track and we know how to get away from the people we're jumping with before deployment. But certainly, there's been plenty of issues in the past when people didn't understand that concept. So that's great. I was thinking when you were talking about a couple of things about like glide ratio, and the terms that get thrown around that maybe even experienced jumpers, they've heard it, they've got a basic idea of what it is, but if you ask them to quantify it, uh, as a for instance, we were listening to a flight briefing for the military guys we're working with, and the canopy instructor was talking about their A lines, and it's literally jump one, and the three of us experienced. My staff was there, and my teammate Andy, and we're like, I'm pretty sure I know which ones are my A lines, and Steph's like, yeah, I think I do, and Steph's got 20,000 jumps or something, and just but if you took a normal day, like say you just had a little scribe with you for the day, and every time you threw out a skydiving term, glide ratio, you are responsible the next weekend for coming with the placard that explains what glide ratio is. And you put it up on the wall, and this is how much forward you get, and this is how much down you get, 3 to 1 or whatever it is. This is how, you pick a target that's out at about a 45, and hopefully your glide ratio is going to get you to that target. And if it's coming straight at you, it's good. And if it's rising up, you're not going to make it there. And if it's sinking down, you're going to go past it. And the things that you would teach, that somebody might teach in a canopy course, but you had that little catchphrase, so you have to do it. And that might be an interesting thing just to have around the drop zone.
Yeah.
What are your control lines? Those, well, are those the same as your brake lines? Why do we call them two different things? And then on the heels of that, especially as it relates to canopy stuff, wouldn't it be great to just have a free copy of Brian Germain's book, Parachute and Its Pilot? And you just have that kind of, how that they have books and there's like a strap through the binding, and it just sits on a pedestal, and you can flip through it, but you can't steal the
Mhm.
book. That might be a good call for the belly corner, the free fly corner. We have two different corners at Sky of Chicago, but we're, just wherever people hang out, and you could just flip through that. And Brian has a great way of explaining things, and um, but that might be a good safety day thing. You know,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna play a game. Everybody submit a quote from skydiving, some term. We're gonna put it in the hat, and then we're gonna pass out those things. And not only do you have to understand what it is fully, you've got to make a 2 foot by 4 foot board that explains it to other people, and we're going to put it up around the drop zone, like a safety day thing. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Just so newer jumpers that are drinking from a frickin' fire hose with information and terms and blah blah blah, they have a place of, hey, it's cloudy. Let me go look at what all this stuff is.
Yeah. I thought of the other the other thing that I think in that beginning stage is really beginning to, not that you have to understand everything about jump run, but beginning to be concerned with jump run, like starting to care about it, like really asking questions. Why did you choose to make the jump run like this today? Explain it to me. Like you ask the DZO, or ask the pilot if he has time. He may not have time, but find someone that you can ask and that knows how to explain it. But really beginning to care about jump run and
Mm-hmm.
understand why it's a certain way, really beginning to care and think about the winds at all levels, at all altitudes, um, and just pay attention and think about that. And then on top of that, starting to think about and ask questions about, okay, drift, and what does that mean, and why is exit order the way it is? I think at the beginning stages, those things get talked about, and people my sense, this is my experience, and my sense is that people kind of assume that people are beginning to understand it and figure it out, but nobody's ever explaining it to anybody. And then most people, I think, don't have the gumption to ask questions, or to say, wait, I don't understand. Nobody ever told me. Wait, well, hold on. What are you guys talking about? I don't
Yeah.
get it. Like that's very hard to do. And so I think a lot of those things are just getting kind of pushed around, and people act like they understand when really they don't. And they're hoping that they can just hear enough conversations to begin to piece it together. And that takes forever. Like some
Yeah.
people probably do that, and eventually they do understand, but it takes so long.
Yeah. Another great idea. I was thinking when you were talking about it that part of Summerfest this year for me was each morning given a seminar about beginning movement groups, or the introductory movement groups. And every morning I started with exactly that. What do we need to know about this drop zone to go make a safe movement jump? And of course, one of the things is jump run. And it was surprising. I mean, somebody always had an answer, but a lot of times it was the people who had already attended the briefing who wanted to listen a second or third time. But the number of days that I went in there, it's day 7 of Summerfest. Can anybody tell me what was jump run all day yesterday? and just crickets. You guys
And these are
jumped all
people who
day
jumped all day
yesterday.
yesterday.
You don't know what direction the plane was going. You don't know where the
But
green light
they were
was.
jumping the day before, right? They were jumping,
Yeah. Hmm.
but didn't know.
Didn't know.
Yeah.
And the people, the few people that were able to give that answer, either they listened to it previously, or to be honest, they were in my group. Because every time I go to the mock-up and I take them over to the board, guys, this is jump run. This is the green light. Look at this. This whole display is for us. Like, we're gonna hook left if we get 1.2 miles past, and just going over that stuff with everybody. But it's not the same way that everybody works. So I think
Yeah.
that's outstanding. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I went for a long, long time before I ever paid attention to it. I mean, many, many, many jumps before I
Yeah.
ever even cared. I was like, somebody else will figure it out. You know,
Yeah.
somebody else is thinking about it. I don't need to think about it. Why do I care? I'm just jumping
Yeah.
out, you know, like,
And it
but
works. You
I
can,
mean, it
but it's
does
better to be
work, but it's
informed.
not the best.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
And for the sake of progression, so that when you get ready to do these other things, that's one less thing you have to figure out. You've already figured it out. You've already begun to understand it.
Yeah.
You're already thinking through it and asking those questions and paying attention so that you can focus on the other stuff, you know?
So far, do you feel like understanding the exits, understanding jump run, flat tracking, those are first season things in your mind?
I think
Like your
so.
very first season of skydiving. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever that first stage is, that beginner stage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean
Um,
that you have to have those things perfected and that I mean, I can still improve my exits. There's, you know, plenty of things I can learn and get better at on exits. And I don't think I'm a beginner, but um, yeah, I'm just saying that you kind of focus on those things and really make a conscious, intentional effort to learn and understand and improve on those things.
yeah. Yeah. How do you think that progresses into season two?
Okay. So season two, yeah. See, that's where it's hard for me to, and that's why I thought I thought it was good to talk with other people about it, especially to talk with you about it. Is like there is some gray area because season one, you do want to start jumping with other people, and so season one, yeah, I don't. Okay, so season two, I think is um, beginning to understand and think about jumping with other people, but it could still be focusing on exits, but it's more like maybe more advanced exit, like linked exits with one other person, or a two-way linked exit, or even a four-way, three-way, four-way. That's fine. That could be stage two. You don't have to be super advanced to do a four-way linked exit. Um, but those kind of things, if you've really spent the time on stage one perfecting or working hard to get your exits really strong and get good and solid at those exits, then when you do a two-way with someone else and both people have worked really hard, like made intentional effort to get their solo belly exits really strong, well, then think how quickly they're going to advance and get the two-way exit really good, and then a three-way and a four-way. So it really is serving. What were you gonna say something?
Four way, like four way.
Yeah. Um, so I think it kind of that just naturally progresses into those things. As far as exits go, you still continue to focus on that, but just different um, aspect. More people. Um,
Have you ever looked at the British Parachuting Association, the BPA, their progression program for students?
no.
It's very in line with what you're saying,
Hmm.
and they are I mean, they're Brits. They're super structured about everything, but you get sign offs for kind of similar to like the tunnel progression, how you get check boxes for when you are accomplishing things, which I I think might be a great addition to what we already do. That Dropzones talk a lot about how do we retain the AFF students, how do we keep them from getting done and then not jumping anymore. Um, and that's always a question. But if they had milestones um, to be progressing towards, I think that, do you know that they used to have like, it was based on jump numbers. They gave out awards in the US for like 1,000 jumps and you got to
Mm,
diamond wings, or
yeah.
those have kind of fallen out of favor, I think. But again, maybe something good around Spaceland where you, hey, I've worked my way through these exits and I can start doing two-way exits now, and give people stuff to work towards rather than just good luck. Um,
Yeah.
but
And so I think another thing in that stage two, and there can be some overlap, stage one, stage two, but I think that's where um, more of the flight skills, the in-air skills that you were kind of mentioning earlier, is where you really focus on those. And that doesn't mean you can't get better and improve at the flight skills during stage one. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the things that you're really focusing on is those other things. And then stage two, it's like, okay, I've kind of begun to hone the exits, those other things, tracking different things. And so now you can focus more comfortably on the flight skills. And maybe that means now you're spending more time in the tunnel. Maybe you're not jumping as much because you're putting that money towards the tunnel, so you really can get very proficient at your flight skills. But that and in that order, I think might be good. I'm not saying definitively, but I think it might be good so that you're not getting your flight skills really good, but then you can't exit. You can't track. You're not safe under canopy. You don't know anything about jump run, but yet you can shred in the sky. Well, that might not be the best progression. That might not be the best way to do it. Whereas if you focus on those things first, then okay, now let's work on the flight skills. Get really good at belly flying. Get in the tunnel, get your level one, just learn how to shred on your belly. You know, that's awesome, man. And now you combine that with what you've been focusing on in stage one, dude, you're good. You're golden. You can start doing some pretty fun belly formation stuff. You could do some 6-way, 8-way, 10-way, 12-way, like really have some fun and safe because you've got those other skills that go along with it. Um, so that's what I would kind of say for level stage two would be maybe beginning to really spend some time in the tunnel. More
and would
more
you
time, because I think you should have already spent time in the tunnel too on stage one. I should probably say that.
would you make these guidelines? Would you make them requirements?
Oh man, I don't know. I really haven't thought about it that way. This was more of just like a fun mental exercise for me to think through.
But I mean, there is a. I think that there is a legitimate need for exactly what you're talking about in the sport, and if it's not done on the national level, then it kind of falls to individual drop zones to say what they want, and some are more involved with their students than others, and if it would it be in everybody's best interest to make it be like a, I mean, we have A license, we have B license, we have C license, obviously, and skills that go along with that. Um, would you add on to that stuff, or would you just say, "Hey, this is where I jump, and this is what I think, newer students could benefit from. So I'm gonna throw out these guidelines, and hopefully people listen."
I mean, I think it would be cool to add on to that because, I mean, you said those license A, B, C, D that we have skills that go along with it, but I mean, do we really? We don't really. I mean, can I push back on that? Because I don't think we have skills that go along with that.
Mm.
We have jump numbers.
Yeah, you definitely
Like
have to get jump
really,
numbers,
I mean, like
but
what
B
are the?
license B
There's not.
license requires a canopy course now.
Yeah, but that
Um,
just means that you took it. It doesn't mean that you actually have skills. You see what I'm saying? Like the argument that I'm
mm,
trying to make. And then C
yeah,
license, like you just got to have the jump numbers. But you really don't have to show proficiency at certain skills, do you? I mean, maybe I'm remembering wrong.
I mean, on your A license, I've signed a lot of A license cards, and there's stuff about like landing within a distance of a pre-designated target.
I mean,
Um,
okay. So sorry, let me back up. I would say A
mm,
license is the only one. If
mm,
I was going to argue, like really argue, I
yeah,
think A license clearly has skills associated with it because you had to go through AFF. Like you had to show that you can turn left and right. You had to show that you can get on your back and recover. You had to show that you can do loops and all that, right? Like
yeah,
the A license actually does have skills associated with it. So sorry, I shouldn't have said.
mm,
But then after that, it seems like it's just numbers.
yeah.
So to answer your question, I would say in an ideal world, yeah, I think I think there would be some of these things would be more like guidelines, more like things to shoot for, like goals, like you want to get that sign off, you want to get that approval to say that you've gotten proficient at it, like you have that skill.
But do you like, not to hammer on this, but don't you feel like this might be a good like trying to come up with some reasonable requirements for B license and C license, D license as far as skill sets, and that a B license is 50 jumps, I think, and a C
Mm-hmm.
is 200, and a D is 500. Um, what skills do you want people to have? What knowledge base do you want them to have? And there is a written test for those, as far as I'm aware. Um, but the skill set, like, you have to be able to track within 10 degrees of your radial and display that to a coach, and those kinds of things that we're saying, okay, if you're gonna be able to get that checkbox, you got to go practice it, right? And
Yeah.
that's a life-saving skill. um, or understanding not bellying out on a free fly jump, or I don't know what they would all be, but maybe a little bit more involved on. I don't know if I don't know, because a lot of people resist like more rules.
Yeah, I do feel when you say it, I feel myself kind of cringing, like, nah, I don't want
Yeah,
that.
yeah. But at the same time, I don't know. It's like you want people to be safe. You want people to have this baseline of knowledge that's going to keep them safe. But you want them to do it on their own.
Yeah,
You want them to
yeah,
want the
because
knowledge.
I kind of I was starting to imagine, like when you were saying all that, I was imagining like if it's just another sign off that you have to have from some instructor somewhere, then people are just gonna like, oh yeah, you did good enough, and they just check it off, and it doesn't mean anything anymore. So it's like, well, that's not
Yeah,
valuable. It's only valuable when you truly want it yourself, and you're doing it for yourself because you want to get good. And so that's why I'm kind of like, I don't know. I mean, make it a guideline, make it a rule, like set it down. I mean, is that really going to help anybody? Probably, maybe not. I don't know.
I
So
mean, you never know. For sure, it's going to help some people, and
yeah,
especially if you think about, like, if you took all the ideas that you just had, and that was your 2x4 placard that you put up. Hey, these are the things that I think keep skydivers safe and should be a baseline of knowledge. A bunch of people are going to come through the drop zone and read that, and maybe there's a few people who are going to disagree with you, but the new people who don't know enough really to disagree with you are say, "Whoa, yeah, I don't even know what those things are.
mm,
Cool, let me go find out." So maybe guidelines or suggestions by somebody who's concerned around the drop zone.
yeah.
Um,
Or I could see people like if we said, okay, me, JRuss, let's put on a camp where we take people through these skills, like we outline these skills, and we're going to help people if they think these are valuable and they agree with us. Come on, we're going to help you get good at every one of these things, and we put on a camp like that. I could see that, like people, because we want to see people get better at those things. We see the
yeah,
value, and they see the value, and so we're like, okay, let's help everybody get really good at these things. Cool. That I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on board with that. Let's do that. You know.
but then does that become, again? Uh, how does it come into reality? Does Chris say, I'm going to start weekend coaching basic students, and I'm going to keep the price low, and I'm going to put them through a 3 hours of theoretical on Saturday, and then 3 jumps or 4 jumps, and then 3 hours of theoretical on Sunday, and 3 or 4 jumps, and give people an introduction to these baseline knowledges and baseline skills, and then hope they go forth and learn more about them.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much.
Or I'll give you one better. Does somebody come along and design an online course that has all of this knowledge
What?
inherent in
Dude,
it?
that's a great idea. Somebody
Which
should do
I,
that.
I didn't
No,
think we were
they
headed
should get
here,
like
but
the best skydivers in the world. They should have like really top notch skydivers teach all that stuff.
hey, buddy, you can sign up for Crave.
Dude, that's a great idea.
I don't know if you gently manipulated me to this point. Arrived on
if
my
I
own, but
if I did, I am brilliant. I'm like
yeah,
so good, dude.
that's awesome.
Yeah. You should see my notes over here. Okay, at minute 44:55, JRuss will say,
I am I am only soft clay in your hands. Just
dude,
steer me
dude,
where
that's
you
like
want.
some Sherlock Holmes next level
Totally.
manipulation.
No, I think all of it's a good idea. Just yeah, getting it into people's heads is tough. And getting them to want to spend their money on things that are going to keep them safe,
Yeah.
which you think would be easy, but sometimes is not.
Yeah, and then as I've continued to try to think about it, it seems like in my mind at least, as you get further and further in the progression, that's where it begins to there kind of begins to be like diverging tracts. You know, that people, depending on what types of, if you really want to get into wingsuiting or camera flying or whatever, okay,
Yeah.
cool, that totally makes sense. But that means that your skill progression, what you're going to be focusing on and doing, those have to change. They have to be kind of tailored to specific disciplines or types of competition or whatever. So it begins to get a little bit more difficult to have general overarching guidelines and skills and things that you have to do. I think there are some things that are across the board good for everyone, but they're harder for me to
Mm.
see and to come up with than at those lower levels. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 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 I mean, I feel like you came up with a lot better answers to your own question than I did. But the same kind of stumbling block of like, as people progress and there's just crazy different progression, uh, sort of, what am I trying to say? People get better at different rates.
Yeah.
And they differentiate into what interests them. And so it gets a lot harder to say
Right.
things that are going to cover everybody. Um,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I do really like the way that the IBA has made those clear distinctions from, L1, 2, 3, 4, belly, back, head up, head
Yeah.
down. And that it's very clear. Like these are the skills that you need to learn before you move on to the next thing. And that
Mm-hmm.
those things haven't been static. Like they continue to think about it and argue about it and talk about it and discuss and make changes and improvements. And, you know, the skills that used to be on level 3 are now on level 2, or something that used to be on level 2 is now on level 3, and all that stuff. I appreciate that they are working hard to think through that stuff and that they care enough about it to not just let it sit
Yeah.
and stagnate. I think that's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. I mean, as vilified as iFly has been in recent years, there are some very good people who work in that corporation. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and it is nice that they evolve.
Yeah.
I don't.
um
I
do
have to
what?
add that I don't like the requirement for knee flying. I think knee flying is really stupid. Um, and generally, when I see people knee flying, I want to talk them out of it. So the fact that that's been added into the IBA progression is disconcerting to me, but I'm learning to live with it. No
And
one's
wait,
asked me to prove that I can knee fly.
you don't think that's a good skill? Or you got to explain that, because I'm
Well,
surprised that I would think that you would argue for knee flying.
what is it good for?
Well, okay, I'll tell you when I use it, and you tell me maybe I'm don't need to use it. When I'm trying to fly head up with someone who's flying very slow,
Mm-hmm.
that's when
There's
I
one other
tend
time. Yeah, there's
to
one
knee
other
fly.
time that it's predominantly used,
I'm
and it's
sorry.
also in it. There's one other time where people answer that question
I've
with
found myself using it a little bit when we're doing like head up movement.
really.
I mean, I
Hmm.
don't know that. I mean, I would call it it's a type of knee flying. I would call it that. I mean, like I'm head up. I'm moving. It would be when I'm head up, belly moving backwards. And it's
Yeah.
more of
Okay.
a.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't. I would think you could make an argument that that's a type of knee flying, maybe.
I think
Because
that.
it's like legs, yeah, knees bent, but my feet out so that I'm slowing down, so I'm not like just. Yeah, I would call that knee flying. I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
What was the time you were thinking of?
Two grips in front
Oh,
in a head up orientation. That's when I've
oh,
seen
yeah,
people use it a lot.
yes, okay,
Um,
yep,
and like as a for instance, Dusty, who was on our team for 8 years, was a tunnel instructor for a long time before he came to the team, probably 10 years of tunnel instructing. And his default was to knee fly when he needed to take two grips. Um, and maybe the first day he was on the team, I was like, man, you got to stop doing that. And it is effective on its own. And he did buy in, he did buy into my idea very quickly. But especially for the purposes of what we're doing in VFS, like if you're going to knee fly and your feet are behind you, you're not in a good place to transition. You're not in a good place to move. You are a static person who can comfortably take two two grips in front of you. But as soon as you need to do anything else, you need to either go back to a classic sit or some approximation of a classic sit because you're not in a good position to do anything from knee flying.
Okay.
And so, on the idea that what we're going to require out of people, and when I say we, I'm not really part of the tunnel. But what's going to be required from people to direct their progression, I think, should have efficacy into the future as far as something that you're actually going to want to use. And I feel like knee flying was thrown in there for some reason that I don't really understand. And maybe somebody else can explain it to me in a different way. I don't know. I mean, I don't know who or where that inclusion came from. And I'm like, I really do believe in teaching people a variety of body positions and especially like thinking out of the box as far as pushing people to just understand the wind and how it flows across their control surfaces. But almost everything else in the IBA progression makes complete sense to me as far as what they're asking you to do and how it relates to some future either flying or skydiving thing. And that one I just don't agree with. But otherwise, I do agree that they're working on it and keeping it evolving.
So what would be in that situation that you're saying for VFS?
Yeah.
What did you tell him? What did you tell him to do instead of knee flying with the two grips? What do you do? Just a regular sit fly, two grips?
No, 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 no. That's really hard. But a stag position or both legs down, like a wide stand,
Okay.
are very effective, and you're in a good position to move, and you're in a reasonable place to transition.
Okay. And you
Yeah,
can still control your fall rate enough.
yeah. I mean, everything about it is better than knee flying.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Um,
Yeah,
all right. Can I change subject? Change the
yeah,
topic?
for sure.
So I want to share with you a story that happened at the drop zone,
Okay.
and I'll leave all names out to protect the innocent.
Ah, come on. All right. Okay. That's where the
No, it
juice
was
is.
do what?
That's where all the good juice is. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I know
I
that
mean, I
guy.
honestly don't think they would care if I said their names
Yeah.
because the way that it shook down was very positive. But I mean, it doesn't matter. We were just doing some movement stuff, and we had a group of guys that we had planned to jump together the whole day. And so the first jump of the day was just like, okay, we're just going to do kind of like a warm up, angle jump. We're gonna not anything major. And so we had a plan, and we walked it a few times, talked about it, dirt dive, practiced at the mock up and stuff. And when we when first of all when we exited, we were going to go. The person who was leading the jump said we're going to go under the airplane and do our thing. Well, when we left the plane, we didn't go under. We went off the wing.
Oh.
It's like, okay, that threw me off a little bit, but I tried my best to get back in it as quick as I could. Got there, we did the jump. It didn't go great, but it wasn't a total bust, but it wasn't like awesome or anything. And then it ended up when we went through a particular transition within the jump, I just ended up really low. I did a couple things wrong, and I ended up really low on my back, which was the plan I was in the group that was going to end up on our backs, but I shouldn't have been that low. It doesn't matter why, but so I'm watching the leader, following them, tracking away, but I'm pretty low. So I'm watching. I see them break off. So I just get a line that's a little bit off of them. I track, I turn, and I track really hard. And then I get to, I hear my ditter or whatever pitch. And when I pitch and my canopy opens and I look around, I see a canopy right there. a canopy right there, a canopy over there, a canopy back behind me, a canopy behind me. Like I was in the middle. I'm not exaggerating. I was in the middle of the big way belly group that had exited before us, like in the middle of them, JRuss.
Mm.
I was kind of like, just for a split second in my mind, I was kind of like, how is this even possible? I was so confused and kind of freaked out. I was like, what just happened? Like I wasn't even scared because I couldn't comprehend, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
So we get down, I land, and I was walking into the packing room, and it was really weird because I had like multiple things going through my head. And the guys I was jumping with are all, I'm going to say all of them are more experienced than me. Maybe not every one of them, but especially the guy that was leading the jump. And at that moment, there was, if I'm honest with myself, there was a desire for me to go in there and just like really get onto him and get mad because it's like he's way more experienced, he's way more knowledgeable, he's a better flyer, and is like it. I could feel how it might feel good for me to get onto him and put him in his place because of that disparity. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah.
But as I was walking in, I was just kind of trying to think through like how would I want to be treated? How would I want somebody to talk to me? What's going to truly help this situation the most way possible? And I was really tempted to just go in and be like, dude, what the, like just kind of go off. Um, as I walked in the packing room, I'm going to say that I really believe that it was God that helped, the Holy Spirit that helped me just chill out for a second.
Hmm.
And the phrase that came to mind as I walked up to that guy and the other guy who was actually organizing the day, and it wasn't the guy who organized the day, he wasn't the leader of the jump for that jump. It was this other guy. As I walked up to them, I just heard this phrase in my head just saying, hey, just ask, how can we think through this? Here's what happened. What can we do to make sure this never happens again? Like, can you guys help me figure out what went wrong? And so that's what I said. That's what came out. I just said, hey, I put my hand on both of them. They turned around. I was like, hey, I really need some help. I need some help thinking through this because that was really scary. And they're like, whoa, what are you talking about? What happened? And then I just explained, I opened up in the middle of that belly group. Like, I'm really not exaggerating. Like, I really was in the middle of them. And it really freaked me out. And I just like, can you guys please help me figure out what in the world happened? Like, how did that happen? And I don't know, JRuss, like, I, I think, I really think because that's the demeanor that I took, and because that was the phrase that came out, like asking for help to figure out why it went so wrong. It completely took the there was no confrontation. There was no
Yeah.
confrontation at all. And the guy who was leading the jump, he listened to me, and then the next few words, the first sentence out of his mouth was like, "Oh my gosh, man, dude, I had no idea. I'm so sorry." And when he said those words, I just looked at him. I was like, dude, thank you so much for those three words mean so much to me that you said, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for saying that. And I just gave him a hug because I didn't know what else to do. Like, really, no, that's what I felt like doing. Is like, thank you. I really needed to hear you say that. And
Can
thank you for saying that. And of course
Can
I
I ask a
forgive you.
question?
Huh?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did the belly flyers not see what had happened?
Dude, that's the crazy part. I kept waiting for them to come over and like berate me and yell at me and get
Yeah.
mad at our group. Nobody ever said anything. And I told myself, I was like, okay, I
Mm.
need to go talk to the organizer because their organizer for the Big Way Belly group, he's a really nice, I mean, really good. His name's Doug Fike, really cool guy,
Mm.
older gentleman, but super awesome. I have a great relationship with him. And I kept meaning to go talk to him. And even throughout the day, I kept thinking, oh, I got to go talk to Doug about it. And nobody, I just kept getting distracted. And then next thing I know, it's like halfway through the day, we're going to the next jump, we're doing all, and I just never talked to him about it. But none of them, I don't even know if they noticed. It was
Hmm.
weird. It was very weird.
Hmm.
But what I was going to say is like that allowed him, the guy who led that jump, I think it really did allow him to honestly, genuinely, what's the word? Like not contemplate, but
be introspective or
Yeah,
um,
look at what he had done wrong.
yeah,
And so there was like three different times throughout the day that he apologized to me. He's like, dude, I'm so sorry about that. Like, dude, I'm really sorry. I was like, hey man, thank you, but look, let's just, and we had a chance to talk about what happened, what went wrong, what did you do, why did we do this, what happened, and I really do think that everybody, at least the couple of us that were directly involved, like learned from, is like, okay, we kind of see the mistakes that were made. Um, there was a last minute the pilot altered jump run a little bit, and so that kind of factored into what he thought he should do differently. And then um, we had misread the upper winds. We had misread, so we didn't realize that jump run was with the wind, which at Spaceland at San Marcos we almost never have jump run with the wind. I mean, it's
mm,
we just don't do that. And none of us had caught that. We just missed it. We misread it. So that we intentionally let the belly group go out first. Well, that was exactly the wrong thing, because we were with the wind. That meant they were drifting. Instead of drifting away from us, they're drifting to us the whole time. Like, so there was a couple things that were, I mean, they were still our fault, but also kind of, my point is that it was just, it turned out to be a very positive experience for me. I ended up actually liking that guy more because of the
yeah,
conversation that we were able to have, the way we were able to interact with one another. Like, I went through the day feeling closer to him, and like actually liking him more as a person because of all of that. Um, and so I think I hope that that's how we can all treat one another, even when people make mistakes. There's no way he did that on purpose. I mean, there's no way. He just made a mistake. He
yeah,
screwed up, and I know I'm going to screw up sometime. And I hope that people are gracious and kind with me and say, "Hey, help me figure out what went wrong. What happened, man? What happened?"
yeah, um, yeah. I mean, there's so many things in that story, but yeah, I would agree that not putting him on the defensive in the beginning probably went a long way to having a positive outcome of that situation that obviously could have been a lot worse. I would think that I think if it was me, and of course you can do this however you want, it might be worthwhile to find that belly organizer and say, hey, we had this situation and I never really addressed it, and well, if I mean it's possible that he didn't see, right, and nobody talked to you. It's possible that they did see, but based on the positive relationship that you guys have, they didn't want to come explode,
Hmm.
uh, because of course that's going to affect it somehow. And so they ended up in kind of a similar boat of like, man, I really need to address this, but I don't know the right way. And if
Hmm.
you go and address it, then that gives them an opening to either vent or if nothing else, well, guys, what happened? Like, how did we how did we get in the same space at the same time?
Yeah.
So it might be worthwhile to go back and especially if you guys are already buddies,
Yeah.
um,
That's a good point.
to just say
Yeah.
that. But then also, I think a lot of times when those mistakes happen, just in life, like nobody loves making a mistake, right? Nobody loves realizing that they fucked up and other people's lives are in danger because of some decision that they made. I mean, I've done that. It sucks. And I'm just like most other people. Like I don't really want to parade that around, but at the same time, it kind of needs to be paraded around. It needs
Hmm.
to be at least acknowledged that it happened, and so that other people can understand. Like, hey, we all the things that you said, the factors that went into the chain of events that got you to where you were. If other people understand those, it's just that much easier for them to maybe avoid that.
Yeah.
And one of the parts of the briefing that I was giving people during Summerfest was about some of the mistakes that other people have already made, and just acknowledging to them, guys, like we've paid the price of those mistakes already. Like sometimes kind of a stiff price, and we don't need to pay it twice. So, and the only way that we can do or pay homage to those people that already paid that price is to not do it again.
Hmm.
So maybe there's some more learning for the other people who do angles at your drop zone who might make the same mistake you did, and it'd be terrible to be like, oh, man, I just did that last week, and we didn't talk to anybody about it, and somebody else did it, and now there's an accident, and blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
a
That's very
couple
good.
points
Thank
going
you.
forward. But I would 100% agree with you that when you were talking, a couple times came to mind where things happened that I didn't like. It's the end of a long day. I probably really could have used a sandwich, and I didn't have one. And I went and yelled at that whoever that person was. And then I got to live with that, and it's tough. Like remembering that, and luckily there's been a few times where I've done that, and then seen the person and been able to say like, "Hey man, I'm sorry." Like that like the message needed to be said, but not the delivery was way out of line.
Mm-hmm.
And But then sometimes I haven't, and that festers with that person. The next time they see you, they're like, "Oh, that guy." Where if you approach it the way that you did, man, what a better outcome, you know. So for all my agnosticism, perhaps I need a little more Holy Spirit.
Another manipulation. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. I am only
Check.
a piece of clay.
I love it that we can laugh about that. It's good.
Yeah. Excellent.
Oh man. All right.
Well, it's been an hour, and even though we didn't have a guest, hopefully we talked about relevant, important topics that people can learn something from
Extremely valuable.
Feel good about the time spent with
Absolutely.
Chris and JRuss. And
Amen.
It is not a wasted hour.
Not at all.
Not when it's my turn.
Yeah, that's right.
And next week, hopefully we'll have the Starlink up in the bus. Hopefully my inverters will be converting the solar power into electricity that we can use. And hopefully Chicken Hawk will join us for the majority of the cast.
Yeah, we'll have some nice background noise.
And poop somewhere up here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good look. Luckily, I'm already married. Cool. Well, all right, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. Hopefully, I'm going to get off air and get scolded for not being energetic enough. So thanks for joining us. That was a great podcast. Love you guys.
All right. Thanks, JRuss.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Peace.
We'll see you next time.
See you, everybody. Bye.